My pronouns are she, her, and I am your worship associate this morning. Please rise in body or spirit and join us in singing hymn number 219 in 218. Sorry, in the gray hymnal. We have not done this before, so.
Yeah, I'll play it once all the way through so you can hear the melody.
And I use the pronouns he, him. I am the president of the Board of Trustees. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of the Hudson Valley. Whether you've been with this congregation a decade or more, or this is your first time visiting us, we welcome you. Whatever the faith and traditions of your past, we welcome you. Whatever your theological stance, we welcome you. Whoever you are and whomever you love, we welcome you. Whatever your heritage, we welcome you. We respectfully acknowledge the territory on which our church building sits as the ancestral homelands of the Munsee, Lenape, and Wappinger people. I have a couple of announcements. This morning at 11:30, after the service, we will be holding a mid-year congregation meeting to vote on applying for renewal of our welcoming congregation certification. We will also be hearing about the plans for the sanctuary accessibility project. Due to a change in our bylaws last June, voting remotely is now permitted. We will be broadcasting the meeting. The link is in the Saturday reminder email from UCHV. The Board of Trustees met this week, and we're thanking Hospitality Team 3 for their hard work to make the coffee hours during January so enjoyable. The leaders of the team are Susie Dugas and Eliana Margarinas. Thirdly, there will be a special postcard writing opportunity after the service today. We will be sending postcards to Representative Mike Lawlor of Congressional District 17 about the Afghan refugees who have already been vetted to be resettled in Westchester County by Open Arms for Refugees. Look for Ginny, Terry, Daria, or Tina during coffee hour. It will take you less than 5 minutes to to write this one postcard. For the most up-to-date information on these topics and others, please refer to our weekly e-newsletter and check our website frequently. And please join us for conversation after the service. If you are present in the sanctuary, please join us for coffee and conversation in our fellowship hall. If you're watching the live stream, the link for our Zoom coffee hour can be found in the Saturday reminder in your email. If you're just recently joining us and would like to receive our weekly e-news, please email us at uucroton@gmail.com or fill out one of these yellow forms for visitors in the pews and leave them at the back as you leave the room. We'll make sure that you're added to our e-news list. Also, please remember to silence your cell phones at this time. Once again, we welcome you to the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of the Hudson Valley.
Thank you. It is good to see you. It is good to be here in person. Thank you. I cannot see you online, but I'm glad you are here joining us in this space. We have come from many rooms into this one sanctuary. We are connected even when it feels cold and distant. We are connected with those who have come before us. We are connected with communities around the world working for love and justice and healing. And even on days where there are unexpected surprises, there are also glad surprises. And some of them are small, but they're sacred. Let us be attentive to those little graces that strengthen and connect us. In our tradition, we gather to celebrate life. And one way we celebrate life, the joys and the sorrows, the hopes and the dreams in our congregation, is we ring the bells of our sanctuary, whether it is a sunny day or a slushy one. And so now, if you are a young person in the sanctuary, a child, a youth leader in the sanctuary, please head to the bell tower, where you will be joined by the wonderful Terry Lucan, and we will ring those bells for our values and our hopes. Thank you. And may those sounds resonate in the days that are joyful and hard in the week ahead.
Our chalice lighting words this morning are by Pat Uribe Lichty. Our chalice is a reminder that in hard times, our ancestors in faith acted with courage to bring hope and safety, to bring life itself to threatened people. We light it today as a reminder of who we are called to be in a world still dangerous and despairing. With courage and faith, we bring ourselves to the work before us. Now, please join me in saying our unison affirmation. The words are in your order of service. Inspired by love, our mission is to seek our true nature, connect deeply and openly, and act for justice.
And now we sing our songs of praise in English and Spanish. If you want to follow along in your gray hymnal, number 381 and 382, but our hymns of praise. to draw attention to the front of your order of service. You will see the icon of drum. Drum is one of the oldest and largest multicultural ministries within the North American form of Unitarian Universalism. It developed in the 90s to connect the African American Unitarian Universalist Network, UNA, which was the Latino Unitarian Universalist Network, the AAPI Unitarian Voices, all into a shared and growing community. Their symbol is a drum because they believe in the power of worship and spiritual care and music and deep relationships to bring connections that are healing and transforming all across this association. They provide remarkable chaplaincy to those who are hospital chaplains. They serve communities, college students, and professionals in this work. And I think about them today, on the day we began a service with the music Bella Ciao, because they speak to, and that song speaks to, and our tradition speaks to, the healing possibility of music in a world that often denies hope. And music defiantly says, no, hope is real. It really is. It's possible. The final word has not been written. That song we heard at the beginning of service originally was a peasant worker song in Italy. And then during the years of the war and the fascist dictatorship, it became a mantra for anti-fascists, especially in the last stages of the war, working to overthrow and resist Mussolini's regime. And over the decades, it's become a song that people sing, especially in Europe and Latin America, to resist anti-authoritarians. And just 2 weeks ago, and really in subsequent protests since, all across Germany, crowds of people have been gathering, singing that song, heeding the lesson of drum, that music is resistance. So yes, there are scary forces, organized forces, wealthy forces in the world right now. But people are drawing strength from old stories and old songs of resistance. As we gather in our meditation today, we call forward all those who have gone before us. All those who have gone before us. Did not Hans says, let us be at peace with our bodies and minds. Let us return to ourselves and become holy ourselves. Let us be aware of the source of being common to us all and all living things, evoking the presence of the great compassion. Let us fill our hearts with our own compassion toward ourselves and toward all living beings. Let us pray that we ourselves cease to be the cause of suffering to each other. With humility, with awareness of the existence of life and of the sufferings, the deep sufferings that are going on around us. Let us practice the establishment of peace in our hearts, and let us practice the establishment of peace on earth. Let us be at peace with our bodies and our minds. Let us return to ourselves and become holy ourselves. Breathing out, I know I am breathing out. Breathing in, I feel the whole length of my in-breath. Breathing out, I feel the whole length of my out-breath. Breathing in, I know I am breathing in. Breathing out, I smile. In a moment, we will continue our meditative breath in song. Hymn number 1031, May I be filled with loving kindness. May you be filled with loving kindness. May we be filled with loving kindness.
Good morning. There is an attachment in your programs today, along with some really nifty pens. I hope you'll all have a chance to read this before our meeting at 11:30. It outlines the 5 practices of becoming a welcoming congregation. If you're anything like me, you'll probably read it and you'll go, we're pretty good on that one, we're not so good on that one, we need to do a little better here. The vote is just about reaffirming what we already do and making a commitment to do the things we're not so great at better. In regular times, whatever regular times are, this would be an important vote. Considering what the times are today, it is essential. So we thank you for your time. You'll hear us all talk more later. And I hope you'll vote with us. Thank you.
As Unitarian Universalists, we honor sources of wisdom, ancient and modern. Our reading today is a special letter from this week past from the President of the Unitarian Universalist Association. Dear friends, I am proud to share with you that the Unitarian Universalist Association has joined with a multi-faith coalition and the Institute for Constitutional Advocacy and Protection to bring a lawsuit challenging Immigration and Custom Enforcement's, quote, sensitive locations policy. The case, Mennonite Church USA et al. Versus United States Department of Homeland Security et al., was filed in federal district court in Washington, D.C. Houses of worship, as well as schools and hospitals, had previously been protected from ICE enforcement actions, but a Department of Homeland Security memo rescinded that protection on January 20th. We joined this multi-faith coalition representing millions of Americans across dozens of denominations to challenge the ending of ICE's sensitive locations policy and oppose any interpretation of the law which would allow immigration raids in houses of worship and religious ceremonies. First paragraph of the suit states, plaintiffs in this challenge are 12 national denominational bodies and representatives, 4 regional denominational bodies, and 11 denominational and interdenominational associations, all rooted in the Jewish and Christian faiths. Plaintiffs and their members are Baptist, Brethren, Conservative Jewish, Episcopalian, Evangelical, Mennonite, Quaker, Pentecostal, Presbyterian, Reconstructionist Jewish, Reformed Jewish, Unitarian Universalist, United Methodist, Zion Methodist, and more. They bring the suit unified on a fundamental belief. Every human being, regardless of birthplace, is a child of God, worthy of dignity, care, and love. Welcoming the stranger or immigrant is thus a central precept of their faith practices. No, a footnote in the lawsuit explained that Unitarian Universalists respect the wisdom of Jewish and Jesus' teachings without requiring any creedal tests related to their divinity. We believe, and the lawsuit asserts, that subjecting places of worship to ICE enforcement actions without a judicial warrant substantially burdens our religious exercise in violation of the First Amendment and the Religious Freedom Restoration Act. We know that many of our congregations include members who are immigrants, both documented and undocumented, and many of you carry out important ministries that serve immigrant communities in church spaces. The UUA is committed to supporting and protecting your ability to continue this vital and life-saving work. Yours in faith, Reverend Dr. Sophia Betancourt, UUA President. We come together in community to share with one another, to support one another, and to celebrate one another. We bear sacred witness to each other in this time-honored ritual. As we begin, we know that there are both great sorrows and great joys in our world that must be acknowledged as well. We light our first candle to honor those in pain. Victims of violence and war and oppression all around the world. We light a second candle because we understand that amidst all this pain, there is also celebration and joy in our world. We honor that joy and sorrow are woven together. For some of us here today, this has been a week of life-changing joy that needs to be lifted up in this worship. For others, this has been a time of deep pain and sorrow that needs to be shared to make the burden lighter. If this has been such a time for you, I invite you to come forward, light a candle, and briefly tell us of your joy or sorrow. You may also raise your hand in silent acknowledgement of your joys and sorrows, and we will light a candle for you. And I'm going to go first. I have a joy and a sorrow. The joy is that my grandson, who was born with a cleft palate and spent some time in the NICU learning how to swallow, is home with his mothers and his sister, and while his path is still not entirely clear, there will be surgery in the next year or so, he's doing much better. So that is a joy. My sorrow is, as soon as I came home from being with my daughter and her family in Indiana, my brother had a massive heart attack and died. So, not to be too much of a downer, but yeah, that was my week.
Oh, it's hard to come after that. I have a joy and a sorrow. The joy is that I was able to join 5 other people yesterday making sandwiches and cooking rice and desserts for the program for the homeless in the church in Ossining that we were supporting for this month. And if you've never joined one of these groups, it's the connection and sense of community you get to know these people on a different level. It will sustain me for at least a week, just that joy. My sorrow is a little bizarre. I'm on the hospitality team for February, and that hospitality team, as Jim was thanking last month, is we bring the snacks, we sweep up, we clean up, we set up. And if you aren't on one and would like to be on one, I'm chair of membership. I would be happy to give you a hospitality team you could be a part of. It's every 4 months. But my sorrow is that the broom that we use to sweep the floor at the end of the coffee hour has gone missing. And if you know me, you know I have a passion for sweeping. And the loss of that broom is hard for me. So if you know the mystery of the missing broom, please let us know. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Sharon. I want to share with you the fact that this beautiful artwork that's displayed around the church, it was done by my significant other, Ted Berkowitz. He will be having an opening on March 2nd from 12 to 2, and I hope you can join us then. Just a little bit more party time. Thank you.
My joy is, I'm Michael, he, him. My joy is that we are restarting our concert program, and Blake is going to, and his band are going to be giving us a concert on March 15th, and we hope you will all come. Also, it's a fundraiser, and if you want to bring beverages or desserts to share, we will be selling them.
Hi, I'm Margie. My pronouns are she, her. And I had a tremendous joy last weekend. Our inclusivity team was invited to attend a conference in Connecticut hosted by a philanthropic organization that supports LGBTQ community partners. And so I went and met a ton of people. It was from as small as we are to the Loft, the CEO of the Loft, and everyone just shared ideas and concerns, and at the end they made a sizable donation to everyone who attended. So Fourth Friday's got a little financial infusion as well as, you know, just emotional support to have others to work with. So it was a joy.
Hi, I'm Scott. This is a moment of gratitude. Last night, my wife and daughter were driving back from Jersey, and she lost control of the car on the slippery road. Thank God she's okay. She was able to gain control, avoid getting hit by a truck that was coming close by. My life flashed before me because the two most important parts of my life are my girls. Nothing is more important than that. And the power of now, the power of now, of gratitude, of being here now, really struck me. And it struck me more this morning as I was coming in. You might recall there was a district attorney that was killed last Thanksgiving in a car crash from Scarsdale that made the news. They were friends of mine. I grew up with them. So we're here now, and that's a blessing.
Hi, I'm Luke, and I had the interesting opportunity to hear and listen to Mike Lawlor come to our school. It was frustrating, to say the least, because the format, essentially we had questions that we could ask, and he would give answers, and we couldn't ask follow-up questions. So I had this really great question about whether this administration will pursue crimes on a fair and impartial basis, based on how the Southern District Attorney of New York resigned because of Trump's request to drop the Eric Adams corruption case. And because I didn't get to ask a follow-up question, by the end of his response, it sounded like a stupid question, which was very frustrating. Yeah, and also he was just like enraging, I swear.
Hi, everyone. I'm Yaya. I take they, them pronouns. And this week was bookended. It started with a lot of joy and ended with some sorrow. Earlier this week, I got calls from 2 of my brothers in Morocco on the same day, which only usually happens when somebody is dying or has died. But one of them called to share that he's going to be getting engaged and married this summer. And then the other one called to share that he and his wife are going to be expecting a child this summer. So lots of family joy and a lot lot of trips to Morocco planned for this year. And then just 2 days ago, Megan and Birgit's niece had a fire in her apartment and lost everything, and also lost her new cat, which we did not get to meet yet. And so really welcome your prayers as she bounces back in her early 20s from a super traumatic experience.
Wow, those are some, anyway, beautiful art also. I'm so happy we're here in person today because, as some of you might know, tomorrow I take off for over a month. I'm going to Seattle first, and then my daughter and I are flying to Bangkok, and then we are going to northern Thailand, and then we are flying to Vietnam. So I'm terrified, I'm excited, I am so aware of the privilege I have to do something like this, of the privilege I have to be supported and encouraged by my husband, who's going to stay home, welcomed by the love of my 2 kids, but I can't stop thinking this morning about the fact that I finally memorized our affirmation, and I am really determined to travel light, but that is something I can bring with me on the airplane and everywhere, and it doesn't take up any space. And I will try to think of all of you on my Saturday nights as you gather on Sunday mornings, and I'll see you at the end of March.
Hi, I'm Ginny, and I'm part of the ESP group, organizing group, that's the Emergency Shelter Partnership. And we had, I'm going to say, between 25 and 27 people volunteer to help make meals. It was really such a joy and fun to get to know each other in a way. And last night, Jim and I delivered food around 8:30 to Grace Church in Ossining, and were asked to stay and help serve. And I think, Megan, you and Yaya did as well. So it gave us a chance to sort of experience the 15, there were about 13 unhoused, almost all men. Occasionally there's a woman. So it gave us a chance to see. I mean, these people come in about 8:15 on a Saturday night, and it was horrible last night. And they're all sleeping up in the altar area of the church, if you can imagine, on their sleeping bags and eating their meals. So we had the chance to kind of greet them and kind of talk to them a little bit. Which I found, very, informative and also sad, a bit sad to wonder about their lives and what brings them, to have to seek out a shelter. The other thing that I want to mention is that I've been involved with Open Arms for Refugees, and there's a table out here where you can look for a postcard to write on behalf of about 15 Afghan refugees who have been already vetted and were ready to leave Afghanistan weeks ago. But because of the Trump administration executive order, they're now being blocked from entry. So we want to write a letter, a postcard to Lawlor to put pressure, on the president. I had the wonderful opportunity to work with the first Afghan refugee who came here 3 years ago, named Freshta Nazari. And when she first got here, she had 0 English. So I was helping her learn English, initially remotely when she was living in a camp on a U.S. Army base in New Jersey. I was able to sort of snuggle, that's not the word. smuggle in a little laptop and a hotspot so we could do learning online using Zoom. And then eventually I helped her get connected with a really extensive program, more immersive program at WCC, the ESL program there. And in less than a year and a half, 2 years, she went from a level 0 to a level 6. She's such a hard worker and so good. And is now working in the Westchester County court system in White Plains. So she had been a lawyer, and she's now working as a lawyer, and has just come so far. So she's been involved now in helping to resettle many more Afghans who have been coming through Open Arms for Refugees. So we need your support. Write a card. It'll take you 5 minutes. We'll be out there at the table. And then finally, I want to say, Ted Berkowitz, where are you? Ted Berkowitz loves to sketch jazz musicians, any musician. And so I just noticed he has a sketch of my son back here on the wall, which I'm going to have to claim. So thank you.
I want to light a candle for Sam Nordquist, who is a 24-year-old trans man whose life was taken far too early and too horribly this past week. Our hearts are with Sam's family, Sam's friends, Sam's loved ones, all who knew and treasured Sam and respected Sam. And we light this candle for Sam and for a world where all are free.
We light one final candle for all those joys and sorrows that remain unexpressed, and for those outside of our walls who are still seeking for a place to bring the wholeness of their lives and be received with love. Invite us into a moment of prayer, pause, meditation. And I want to recall words from the 42nd Psalm, which cries out to the eternal, deep calls to deep. Deep calls to deep at the thunder of your cataracts. All your waves and your billows have gone over me. Spirit of life and love,
We remember and bless Sam Nordquist and all brave enough to be themselves and all who have suffered for it. We honor all who seek a world of compassion and protection and belonging and love. Remind us to keep trying even when we fall short, to be kind to ourselves when we fall short, to be resolute when we need to make repair. Invite us to discern the ways we are called to care and accompany all those we meet, family, friends, co-workers, neighbors, strangers, people in this supermarket, elected officials, workers at the medical clinic. Forgive us when we did not see and did not listen, and help us repair. Help us to discern the ways in which we are called to care, nourish, sustain, and support one another and the stranger. May we help one another be attentive to the aches of this world and our hearts. May we help one another be bold in prophetic witness for healing, for peace, for justice. May we help one another to be attentive on our individual spiritual journeys and discernment. Help us to hear what love is asking. As we gather in groups, as we gather in this group, let's discern and listen what love is asking all of us to contribute into this unfolding moment. How are we called to respond to the fears of our hearts? How are we called to respond to the fears of our time? How are we called to respond to the joys of our heart? How are we called to cultivate and protect joy in this time? Grant us courage to listen and act on this misty, slushy day and all days ahead. May it be so. The scholar and writer, Dr. Eddie Glaude Jr., who we heard from in a sermon a few weeks ago, talks a lot about imagination as the gateway to hope and healing and kindness and transformation. In order to create the future, in order to create the present, we need to have space to time, to feel, to be present, to encounter one another and what's around us. Glaude said, imagination is an act of empathy, and it's central to a politics of tending, politics of habits of concern and care that open us up to the wounds and joys of strangers, enables habit formation that affirms the dignity of our fellow beings. It encourages a willingness to embrace practices of listening and being still as a critical feature of democratic struggle. Imagination, being still, listening, encountering with respect the wounds and joys of strangers. Those are the ingredients, Glaude says, are necessary for the democratic struggle. A vision of a world where every person actually does matter and has a right to participate in society, to be free, to be loved, to form groups of their choosing, and to cultivate and care for this shared earth. And we live in a world, and we always have, where voices try to put doubt in that possibility of dignity. And I've heard more than once a healing word from progressive religious leaders that say that we, you and I, you in the fourth row, you watching online, you and I and all of us are connected to the dust of stars and moonbeams, Reverend David Eaton's phrase, snowflakes, moonbeams, and volcanoes. I think the vision of this deep cosmic connection is beautifully expressed in Tagore's poem, The Gardener, when he writes, "Who are you, reader, reading my poems 100 years hence? I cannot send you a single flower from this wealth of the spring, not one single stroke of gold from the clouds. Open your door and look abroad. From your blossoming garden, gather fragrant memories of the vanished flowers of 100 years before. In the joy of your heart, may you feel the living joy that sang one spring morning, sending its glad voice across 100 years." Our tradition affirms mystery and wonder as key, central, foundational affirmations. Because of the awe and mystery we are part of, you have dignity. We're part of something cosmic and bigger. My first minister, Reverend Jose Ballasar of blessed memory, would tell our congregation, be who you are. Be part of this big spirit. But there are other voices that doubt. And there are other voices of righteous lament that say, yes, we are part of the stars, but what of the pain of this world and this life? W.E.B. Du Bois, in his litany for Atlanta in 1906, after a brutal and violent white riot against black Atlanta, in one stanza of his poem, cries out, "Bewildered we are, and passion-tossed, and mad with the madness of a mobbed and mocked and murdered people. Straining at the arm post of the divine throne, we raise our shackled hands and charge thee, divine, by the bones of our stolen fathers, by the tears of our dead mothers, by the very blood of thy crucified Son. What means this? Tell us the plan. Give us the sign." Our religious practice, our spiritual practice exists in a world where the flowers recall memories of 100 years ago, and where life brings unexpected, unjust, unfair violence and disruption and harm. And both of these realities are true and part of the world. But we are called to consider, with this world where both are true, how are we to act? A few weeks ago in the chalice lighting, Gary read, "What will we do with our gifts? Will we bless or curse the world?" As Reverend Rebecca Parker said. So I found the most healing part of this tradition to me is the one that reminds us of the kindness that shows up in the hard times, the love that shows up in the difficult moments. We do live in a world of war, and we live in a world where people show up and leave their loved ones to go visit strangers, to bring food, to make certain children in Gaza are not starving, that people in the Sudan can have a decent meal in the midst of a civil war. We live in a world where even if governments don't understand the power of human dignity, people do. People keep making choices to be kind, even in the face of the great laments, sometimes because of the great laments. I've thought a lot lately about the work of Reverend Dr. William R. Jones, who is one of the boundary-breaking, racism-resisting, post-war black ministers in our tradition. He's from Louisville, Kentucky originally, but he went on early in his career to be among the first black pastors to pastor a predominantly white Unitarian congregation in Providence, Rhode Island in the 1950s. Near Brown University. And he pushed, and he asked questions, and he felt this is not enough to just say, well, now we've called you. We are proving we are progressive and liberal. And Jones was like, what are you doing? How are we engaging with this city where the highways are being put in neighborhoods, destroying my people's homes and churches? These were unsettling questions. Jones left that ministry, went on to divinity school. He went to teach at Yale Divinity School, and for decades served as a beloved professor of religion and the director of Afro-American Studies at Florida State. He died over a decade ago, but his influence remains strong in our denomination. And what he was dedicated to supporting, and he really didn't care if someone was an atheist or a Christian, or he didn't care about labels. He said, whatever theology or philosophy I support are those that are oriented toward resisting ethnic suffering and that say quietism is a terrible temptation. Resist organized bigotry and prejudice, and don't be quiet when it's happening. He said, diagnosis determines treatment. It has often been said, he would observe, that asking the right question is as important as supplying the correct answer. In our time, 3 questions I keep coming back to were introduced to me by Reverend Ashley Horan, who's the leader of our You the Vote effort. And she said, what is the shared moment we are in? What are the most urgent and important needs of this moment? What is the moment calling us to do and become? So this Sunday, whether you're here in person or online, we have a chance to vote to renew our welcoming congregation commitment. Our commitment. The UUA has said, we wish to be bolder with our welcome. And the truth is, we live in a homophobic and transphobic society. Transgender Americans are being demonized by the federal government of the United States of America, mocked by political and religious commentators, and are subject to harassment and violence here in New York. We remember and honor Sam Nordquist. We remember and honor all lives lost due to bigotry. It remains countercultural, deeply spiritual, and absolutely necessary and important to celebrate, affirm, and honor the dignity and joy and power of the LGBTQIA+ community in the United States of America right now. We need to sustain teams and inspire habits to be in ongoing solidarity with the community here in Northern Westchester. We must host and sustain ongoing workshops and partnerships, create pathways for newcomers and longtimers to learn, relearn, unlearn, practice, and deepen inclusivity, and constantly find ways to make the actual life of our sanctuary match our aspirations and espouse promises. The world needs us to grow to meet this moment, because the forces that want people to be afraid are so well funded. But it doesn't matter how much money they have if our hearts say no. A lie is a lie. This week, in front of the Stonewall Inn in Greenwich Village, hundreds of people filled the city block in hours' notice to protest the National Park Department's rewriting of history and removing references to transgender and queer people in the official history of the Stonewall Uprising. The rewriting was due to the current president's executive order declaring that there are only 2 genders, which is not true. The official history in the National Park Service now only references LGB, no longer inclusive of T or Q, even in the acronyms they use. In an interview with Pix 11 News, Nam Palanque, who flew a trans flag on a pole from his jacket, said, "The moment they try to get rid of one of us and try to separate all of us, then they're just going to keep coming for all of us, and there needs to be a stand." Stephen Mendez told Pix 11 News, "The Stonewall National Protest is a significant step toward ensuring the community and the administration is aware of our community's strength." And sign after sign after sign said, "You can't erase us." And there are very comfortable political figures who are pretending that this isn't happening. Luke might have met one of them this week. And they need to be reminded that it is happening, and that they've made promises to be bipartisan and listen and engage. And I'm not just talking about one congressperson, but across the board, all of our elected officials need to hear we care. And they need to live into the values that they're promising to uphold: equal protection under the law, freedom of religion, freedom of expression. As Nora shared, 27 faith communities, including our own, filed a lawsuit for religious freedom and the right to sanctuary. From Episcopal cathedrals to African Zionist Methodist chapels to Unitarian Universalist congregations, anyone who attends a religious service, a spiritual ceremony, or social service at a house of worship, like food distribution or a dance class, should do so without fear or nervousness that there will be a knock at the door from Immigration and Customs Enforcement. That was policy, official policy of the U.S. government in 2011, and a long-standing cultural custom for decades prior. And I want to let you know that you are part of this fight. Our annual contributions, your annual contributions to the UUA, help create the resources to allow these lawsuits to happen. We're part of a bigger whole. We're not the only people who are worried. We're not the only people who are angry. We're not the only people demanding. We can change, and we can be better. We are part of a persistent, ever-changing community of communities. Our ancestors resisted Jim Crow and challenged Nazi Germany. Our ancestors on faith ordained women to the pulpit in the 19th century in a legally misogynistic culture where women could not vote. We ordained openly LGBTQ ministers when Richard Nixon was president of the United States. We're part of a movement that at our best says there's a different way. And it's true. We're also connected to ancestors who were quiet, who turned the other way, who acquiesced to Jim Crow and the Chinese Exclusion Act, who were silent during illegal wars, who curry favor, and who would sabotage efforts to integrate congregations. But just like every generation has, we have a choice. Where do we want to be in the story, individually and as a group? We are here in our America today, our Westchester today, our quarter of the way into the 21st century. And deep suffering cries out for deep compassion. Zadie Smith, in her brilliant essay on optimism and despair, which was adapted from an acceptance speech given at a literary awards ceremony in Berlin, said, "If novelists know anything, it's that individual citizens are internally plural. They have within them the full range of behavioral possibilities. They are like complex musical scores from which certain melodies can be teased out and others ignored or suppressed, depending at least on part on who is doing the conducting." And she concludes, at this moment, all over the world, most recently in America, the conductors standing in front of this human orchestra have only the meanest and most banal melodies in mind. Here in Germany, you will remember these martial songs. They are not a very distant memory. But there is no place on earth where they have not been played at 1 time or another. And those of us who remember, too, a finer music must now play it. Those of us who remember a finer music must now play it and encourage others, if we can, to do the same or sing along. What will we do with our gifts? Will we be quiet or make music to thrill? In the wonderful Frances Ellen Watkins Harper's words, music to thrill the hearts of all with more abundant life. Deep suffering cries out for deep compassion. May we be grateful for our spiritual ancestors. May we steward our present. And may we aspire to grow something even more beautiful, even more welcoming, even more whole for us on this snowy day and for those who will encounter us in the days and weeks ahead. May it be so.
Each week we make an offering from the bounty we are blessed to enjoy. We do this in the spirit of love and generosity, aware that we have benefited from those who have gone before, those who in their turn gave generously. Our offering goes to support the work of love and justice undertaken by this community. Today's offering will also be shared with the Emergency Shelter Partnership, a collaboration of local houses of worship providing short-term emergency shelter and nutritious meals to unhoused adults during the coldest months of the year. Thank you to all who joined on February 13th, 14th, and 15th to prepare meals. Please refer to our e-newsletter or website for more information. You can make your donation in several ways. If present in the sanctuary, you can give cash or a check in the offering plate as it comes by. From your homes, you can make your donation via credit card or PayPal using the links provided in the e-newsletter, or by visiting our website, uuchudsonvalley.org. Or, if you prefer, you may always mail us a check. The offering will now be given and gratefully received. Please join me in the dedication of the offering. The words are in your order of service. May these gifts and the work of our hands and hearts give power to all we stand for as a community of faith. Now please rise and bow to your spirit and join us in our final hymn, hymn number 131 in the gray hymnal. Love will guide us. extinguishing the chalice, the words are in your order of service. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together.
Deep suffering calls for deep compassion. May we seek, act, and find that compassion in our hearts, in our conversations with one another, and look for it and sustain it in the wider world. May it be so.